settled down and has joined our Zoom session this afternoon. Good afternoon once again. My name is Justin Gatuslao. I'm Vice Mayor of the city of Himamaylan in Southern Negros Occidental and a student at the Asian Institute of Management for the Master in Development Management program. And today I'll be your host for this very exciting program we have this afternoon, an online policy brown bag discussion on blue carbon credits with Philippine LGUs, opportunities, challenges, and security issues. Of course, this is brought to us by the Blue Economy Lab and the Social Finance Lab, of which we are fellows as part of our capstone project at the AIM. So we're looking forward to a very lively discussion this afternoon. We can learn more about this very exciting frontier as far as Philippine LGUs and coastal communities are concerned. We have a star-studded lineup of speakers and resource persons this afternoon, and we're all looking forward to hearing from them, and of course hearing from you also as part of our discussion. So without further ado, let's start. And we hear welcome remarks from a very a remarkable person in his own right, an alumnus of the Harvard Kennedy School, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and of course our very own Asian Institute of Management. He is also a medical doctor and the Managing Director of Civica Asian Development Academy. May I please give the floor to Dr. Elmer Soriano. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Gats. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to all of you who are joining us at this brown bag discussion of the Blue Economy Lab. And this is being organized by the inaugural batch of our Blue Carbon Fellows. That means Gats and his teammates. The Blue Economy Lab aims to accelerate innovation so that we will have a thriving blue economy across different sectors and countries. In this afternoon's event, we showcase how the academe, government, CSOs, and the private sectors can co-create solutions to the complex challenges faced by our coastal communities, the broader ecosystem, and our planet. This event would not have been possible without the support of our partners, the Philippine Coast Guard, Galing Po Foundation, SKY, Design Thinkers Academy, the Bridging Leadership Institute, Youth Work Research Center, ThinkShift Design, and the Civica Asian Development Academy. For your information, this is being streamed through the live through the pages of our partners, and collectively there are 17,000 followers. So besides those of us in the Zoom room, there could be a few dozen or a few hundred other viewers joining us this afternoon through the live feed. We look forward to an interesting learning experience, learning conversation with you all this afternoon, and thank you.
Thank you for that, Doc Elmer. May we hear now our opening remarks from our friends from the Philippine Coast Guard, Commander Nasilin Esquilio. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sirs. Good afternoon to everyone, especially our friends online. So I will deliver our welcome remarks. It is an honor for the Philippine Coast Guard, through the Coast Guard Strategic Studies and International Affairs Center, to be part of this policy brown bag discussion on blue carbon credits with Philippine LGUs. As part of the 8-point socioeconomic agenda, as well as the priority bill of PBBM administration, is the pursuit of blue and green economy for sustainable job and livelihood of the people. In solidarity with the Philippines' commitment in pursuing a blue economy and in line with the functions of the Philippine Coast Guard that promotes ocean-based and ocean-related activities, the Center forged and spearheaded relevant partnerships and initiatives such as symposium series in current issues and approaches on the emerging security environment, leadership and governance in the blue economy, the establishment of blue economy laboratories, which is in close partnership with Civica Asian Development Academy, and the first research fellowship on maritime security subjects to include the blue economy. We are also looking forward that the discussions today shall create and sustain blue economy infrastructures in boosting economic development, achieving food security, and sustained productivity. The Philippine Coast Guard, together with other partner agencies, shall take a proactive engagement in mainstreaming the Philippine Blue Economy Framework into local government units and coastal communities and its inclusion to local development plans. With that, the Center again expresses its full support for the Blue Economy agenda. We shall all keep formulating solutions in managing and using the rich marine resources of our archipelagic nation. Again, good afternoon and thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Coast Guard Commander Nasalin Esquillo. So as we get the policy discussion started, we have first with us a multi-awarded public servant in the person of Mayor Alfredo Coro, the second of the municipality of Del Carmen in Siargao. Under his leadership, he first served as 9 years as municipal mayor, then 3 years as vice mayor, and now he's back as mayor once again. He has led the municipality through a transformation in its most conservative way. No, he has transformed the municipality of Del Carmen in the Siargao Islands as an environmentally balanced and community-based development through an environmentally balanced and community-based approach, which has been recognized by various national and international organizations. He's proud to say that he's a father first and then a public servant. Without further ado, let us all welcome with our virtual applause, Mayor Alfredo Matugas Coro II. Go ahead, Mayor. Mayor isn't here yet, so we're going to move on to our second speaker this afternoon. All right, our second speaker this afternoon will be discussing with us very important matters on the Our second speaker is co-founder and head of project management at Vlinder. She's an experienced project manager and a communications professional that built processes, teams, and communications for IT, fintech, and climate change companies. She is an entrepreneur, a manager, and a consultant committed to employing the best available knowledge and technologies to make the Earth a fairer place for everyone. Let us welcome this afternoon with a virtual applause, Lena Machenkova. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here. I will be trying to share my screen now. Hey, give me a second. Sorry for the fuss. Hopefully this will work. Sharing. Yeah. So I'm a co-founder of an Austrian company. We restore mangroves in Africa and Asia, and by developing mangrove restoration projects, which are fully community-based, we are trying to contribute to reversing climate change. We do believe in the power of small actions being forwarded towards one good goal, and in this super connected world that will inevitably have a synergy. And this is why we are called Vlinder. Vlinder is butterfly in Dutch. So our solution to climate change is mangrove restoration. And we have chosen mangroves because they are superheroes in mitigating climate change. They are 5 times better than any other forest in the world. And those mangrove restoration projects always come with significant social and biodiversity co-benefits covering multiple SDGs, as you probably know. We also once in a while say that we bring mangrove restoration to the 21st century because we come from the tech side. We've come to the mangrove restoration from tech environments, and this is why we always explore the new available technologies and For example, currently we use drones for monitoring degraded mangrove areas or planted mangrove areas. We also experiment with computer vision and AI to calculate mangrove CO2 sequestration by mangrove forests. And we monitor biodiversity with environmental DNA, which is a new technology which allows you, without any invasion to the environment, monitor what's going on with your biodiversity on the ground. And we also do lots of experiments with getting early finance to projects like this, specifically looking into blockchain and Web3 space. So basically, when we think of why we are kind of unique or specific or particular, it's because we are trying to combine our unique knowledge of finance and project execution on the ground. And thus we are trying to scale mangrove reforestation as far as we can do it. These are our current projects. We are in Kenya and in Senegal in Africa, and we are in Myanmar and Indonesia in Asia. So we do community-based reforestation, and that is the communities on the ground are our key and most important partners. They are involved in project design and project planning and project implementation and monitoring at every stage. And we share 50% of carbon credits that we get with local stakeholders for project upkeep and community livelihood fund. We certify our projects with Verra, and you probably know this is the leading voluntary carbon standard for now, and their mangrove reforestation methodology is, I would say, most respected at this moment. So we use it, and we do VCS certification, which is general carbon certification, as well as CCB, which is more about community involvement and biodiversity checking, and also SDVista, which cares about SDGs and how many and how carefully our projects cover those. So this is basically the processes that we do. Linda covers pretty much the full project life cycle of a reforestation carbon project, and we do only mangrove restoration for now, and I think we'll be focusing on it in the next many years. So first of all, we are very much included into this environment of blue carbon and reforestation of mangroves. So we have lots of mangrove reforestation initiatives on the ground coming up to us. And we screen that pipeline carefully. We do all sorts of audits. We go to field visits. We do feasibility studies. We basically check how economically viable a project in this area could be. And then if we have chosen the project to be included into our scope, we do greenfield developments, and that would include all sorts of tests and research necessary, mapping the degraded areas, getting all the necessary permissions, understanding what the policies around carbon sequestration as well as mangrove restoration are in the country. We do all the project documentation, and we list this project on Verra. Also, at the same time, we start planting in the area. And yes, we involve with the communities at a very early stage. And by this time, there will be people on the ground included into our staff team. There would be local experts included into our research teams on the ground as well. We also find early stage financing on fair terms for our projects, and that's quite a challenge because this is still a very innovative space for the world to invest in. And this is often a struggle for us because it's high risk investment for 30 years and the project are long term with break-even point at about 7 or 8 years. And this is why investors are always kind of over particular and very careful considering the risks. And at the same time, the return on investments which they expect is sometimes unrealistic. And we do lots of education of potential investors, actual investors, corporates that want to become carbon neutral or net zero, on how the projects operate, how they are structured, how they are designed. Then during the first 2 years, the planting is mostly done. And this is when we have projects registered on Verra normally. And this is when we mostly start expecting to receive first carbon credits. And when the project matures, our scope of work would include regular monitoring on all the sites, biodiversity, social, carbon, actually hosting those verification audits from the standard, having credits issued, marketing the issued credits, and selling the issued credits on behalf of investors, ourselves, and communities. And yes, we also help communities to structure and to run their livelihood programs, so they would have additional sources of income for themselves, and would be caring for the forest, would be the true owners of the forest, and would be caring for the forest for years to come. So this is basically what we do. So we pick and choose and carefully monitor what's going on in the sphere of mangrove reforestation initiatives around the world. We develop and de-risk projects, which we have chosen. We attract co-investors, we execute and run projects for 30 years. So that's basically it. Thank you so much. Open to questions if you have any.
Thank you for that, Lena. Very important to understand the frameworks involved with an international perspective and how we can all be part of this ecosystem as far as our LGUs are concerned. Let's now move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is with our, sorry about that. I'm sorry, wait, just a few seconds. All right. Our next speaker is the project leader of Asia UBA Sustainability Institute and the Blue Economy Manager for Blue Finance. Let's all welcome Elmar Benji Panahon.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. So I am Benji Panahon and I represent two institutions, Blue Alliance, Blue Finance, as their Blue Economy Manager, and for UBA Sustainability Institute as the project lead for the Bakawan project, which is both interrelated. No, let me just share my screen here so I can start. So I will be presenting from the perspective of UBA, who is the technical partner of this project. UBA is a Brazilian word, a local dialect. It means a boat carved in a single tree trunk. So it's a very symbolic image of everyone coming from the same route, right? And everyone moving forward together towards hopefully the right direction. Okay. And it's a very young organization. We started in 2020, but we already have around 15 projects and initiatives, mostly in Latin America, in Brazil, because we started there. And we facilitated the sale of around 8 million tons of CO2 equivalents already in these 15 projects. Now we are operating in 3 countries, 3 continents. So that's Latin America, Europe, and more recently in Asia with the Philippines. And we facilitated the implementation of around 208 hectares in 2020 of agroforestry and forest restoration. No? So just to give you an idea what we do, no? UBA creates new programs. So just like our previous speaker, no? So mostly related on not just blue carbon, but carbon in general, green carbon, blue carbon. Our expertise are really in forestry. So we have agroforestry experts. Our executive director, for example, is an expert on trees. So she's a tree lover. So we do agroforestry, land restoration, forest conservation, mangrove and ocean protection, and sustainable sourcing of non-timber forest products. And then we also help projects facilitate access to markets. This is the carbon credits na nga, no? So how do we accredit? How do we verify? And we begin with that by identifying the land area. Is there deforestation, for example? So we also have evaluations and understanding of the different situation in the communities now before we start this. Yeah, so right now we are involved in around 7 projects. As I said, mostly in Latin America, but in the Philippines, 6 months ago, we started the Bakawan project here in Northern Oriental Mindoro. So it spans from Abra de Ilog in Occidental Mindoro to Calapan in Oriental Mindoro. So 4 municipalities and 1 city, along the Verde Island Passage, coral reefs. So the project is really related to MPA management and conservation with Blue Alliance and Blue Finance. Okay, so how does that situation work now? So that relationship work? Well, basically the project aims to develop a program for mangrove restoration and conservation that will eventually reap carbon credits for the community and also for the management of the MPAs in these localities. We have a partnership with Blue Alliance and Blue Finance. So where Blue Alliance, the local NGO here in Oriental Mindoro, is doing the MPA management together with the local governments. So Blue Alliance has co-management agreements with the local governments of Calapan, Baco, San Isidoro, Puerto Galera, and Abreg de Ilog to enforce MPA management policies and procedures. So that's one component of Blue Alliance, their enforcement and compliance, but they also do biodiversity conservation and science research. We also have community development and engagement. And the 4th pillar of Blue Alliance is sustainable revenue. So these are the 4 aspects of our work in Blue Alliance. And Blue Alliance is basically a brainchild of Blue Finance, which is based in France. So if you think of it in another way, Blue Alliance is like a subsidiary NGO of Blue Finance in the Philippines to implement MPA management agreements with local governments here in Northern Oriental Mindoro. But Blue Alliance is really just focusing on the 3 pillars. Blue Finance is the one who's focused on sustainable revenues. So what is the point of having sustainable revenues? So the idea is for us as a group internally to develop income generating projects for the management of the MPAs. Okay, and so right now we have 3 revenue streams that we are currently developing. One is ecotourism with Blue Wide Eco Venture. So this is more on diving and a dive safari with dive sites in Puerto Galera, Calapan, and possibly also in San Isidoro, in Oriental Mindoro. We have the Blue Carbon Project, which is the Bakawan project together with UBA Sustainability Institute, and sustainable aquaculture like mud crabs and sea cucumber farming, which is still currently in the initial stages of development. So hopefully when these projects are all developed, so Blue Carbon, ecotourism, sustainable aquaculture, these will gain revenues, and together with loans, grants, and some loans and investments from private investors, we could have a blended finance approach in managing our MPAs. So these are the sources that would hopefully fund our enforcement activities, our research activities, and our community engagement activities. So for the community, we also hope that Blue Carbon, the sustainable aquaculture, and ecotourism could also benefit them for their livelihood programs. So just a few pictures of what we've done so far. So right now we are in the very, very early stages of development in our Blue Carbon project. So we are just not even completing year 1. So right now we are identifying the areas, the scope of work where we have where we can really work on in these 5 municipalities. The challenge right now is that we were slowly realizing that a lot of the mangrove areas in Northern Oriental Mindoro are privately owned. So I think the unique challenge here is that how do you then involve private landowners in a project where you involve blue carbon and carbon credits. Also at the same time, carbon policies in the Philippines are still in the development stages as well. So there is no really a clear-cut blue carbon policy in procedure or framework for the Philippines at the moment. No? Yeah, so this is our team, composed of a very small team of 6 people, no, and 2 of us here in the Philippines. So I am the program lead, so I'm in charge of organizing and coordinating activities. But our technical lead, who is our mangrove expert, is really Mr. Russell Climaco, no, who is also here in this conference. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much, and looking forward to hearing more from the other speakers as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Benji. It's very good to see that, in this entire ecosystem that there are so many externalities and additionalities that we can really look forward to when it comes to developing this, the blue carbon economy in our country. Very interesting points on tourism and, of course, the other agricultural projects, the aquacultural projects we could get from this as well. Our next speaker is a professor of political science and development studies at the De La Salle University. Please give our virtual applause to Dr. Sherwin Ona.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Gats, and a warm welcome to everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this brown bag for the invitation. I'm truly grateful to be part of your learning journey. Now, without further ado, I will now share my slides and turn off my camera. All right. I think you can now see my presentation. I will take this opportunity to share with you our Blue Economy Lab journey. We just recently signed the Memorandum of Understanding with the Coast Guard Strategic Studies and International Affairs Center, primarily on the establishment of the Blue Economy Lab within the LSU. So without further ado, when we were conceptualizing the idea of blue economy, sorry about that. When we were conceptualizing the idea of blue economy, oh wait, having some challenges navigating. Anyway, when we were conceptualizing the idea of a blue economy lab, we were actually looking for models and frameworks on where to base our idea of a blue economy lab. And we found this in the idea of human security, which is in simple sense, security of the people. And we believe that this is concept that is very relevant to the Philippines and in fact very timely, given that we're just going out of the pandemic lockdowns back then. And there was an emphasis really on the non-traditional security aspects of national security in general. And when we refer to or use the idea of security of peoples, we are then after not only of physical security, but their economic and social well-being security as well. And this concept embraces the idea of freedoms, a concept where a prominent author, Amartya Sen, forwarded this during the 1990s, but basically protecting or giving importance to fundamental freedoms. Now, I mentioned non-traditional threats. As you know, we are in partnership with the Philippine Coast Guard, and the Philippine Coast Guard at present is the lead agency in the West Philippine Sea, the simmering tensions there. But we would like to support the Coast Guard's efforts, but at the same time look at another aspect of how we can support this. And we found this in the idea of non-traditional threats, wherein we not only look at the blue economy in terms of its maritime security aspect, but rather look at it in in a very diverse and multidimensional way. The blue economy, for instance, as a domain for food security, a domain for law enforcement, a domain for criminality, an area, a venue where terrorism can occur, an area or venue wherein fisher folks, depend on their livelihood. So this is how we're looking at it. And we opted to adopt a whole of society and multi-sectoral approach as compared to a purely militarized or securitized approach. We believe in soft power. So whatever conflict that we're in, especially against a superior adversary, we have no hopes in winning a mano a mano conflict with a superior adversary. Thus, we opted for this. We believe that the Blue Economy Labs can be part of the country's projection of soft power. Okay, there is strength within the unity of our communities, of our NGOs, of our LGUs. And we believe that Blue Economy Labs can be a part of this. So what is this concept of Blue Economy Laboratory? So when we were first thinking about it with the Philippine Coast Guard, well, of course, we underscored the importance of contributing to the national security agenda. And by this, we looked at the Blue Economy as a venue of as a common resource, okay, bordered by multiple stakeholders with different demands and needs. Okay, and since we are partnering with a law enforcement or a quasi-military organization, we recognize that the principles, the doctrines of the Philippine Coast Guard is somewhat quasi-military. And so our argument in pushing for the blue economy is that the blue economy concept, the blue economy laboratories is simply beyond the concept of civil military operations. And in fact, we were up to now, of course, we are pushing the Philippine Coast Guard to adopt a very holistic approach when it comes to addressing blue economy issues. Issues like sustainability, for instance, issues like the management of the blue economy as a common resource, the concept of human security. These are new ideas that we would like to inject in the conceptualization and development of our Blue Economy Lab. Of course, aside from maritime security, we put forward the idea of non-traditional threats as being the following: and challenges encountered because of environmental degradation, health security is part, food security is another aspect, climate change, and of course, the maritime cyber domain. These are only a few of the issues that we would like to touch on. Yeah, as I have mentioned, aside from De La Salle University, we have initial communication with Palawan State. But the idea here is really to mobilize universities and colleges that are closely situated geographically. Okay, but we again, as part of our justification, we underscore the strengths of HEIs, higher educational institutions. Normally, HEIs would have a solid research agenda, and we would like to convince HEIs, especially HEIs that are part of the blue economy, to contribute to this agenda. We were also thinking of the role of LGUs, especially in partnership with the local Coast Guard districts. Okay, we're also eyeing in the future, perhaps the local universities and colleges. Um, we would like to see ourselves as a social lab. Okay, we are very close to the experiences of communities of people, of citizens who are part of the blue economy debate. We, of course, would like to embrace research methodologies, and we would like to see ourselves as very systematic, structured in the sense that we follow a certain agenda. Which brings me to, I guess this is my last slide. Currently, we're working at a research agenda with the Philippine Coast Guard. And the research agenda would identify topics, perhaps some of the topics that I have mentioned a while ago. But aside from this, we would like to make our products, our research more accessible. There is the danger of making research for the sake of making research. Okay. And most of these well-written research end up in libraries or in repositories not being read at all and not being relevant. So with that in our minds, we would like to believe that having accessible products is the way to go. Having short articles, 1,000-word articles, preferably in the local dialects, in Filipino, even in English, of course. Having digital content, short videos, documentaries, relevant documentaries, even comics, even social media posts are things that we would like to consider in this research agenda. Of course, this can be initiated in partnership with the Philippine Coast Guard districts and the LGUs. Initially, we're eyeing 50 policy innovation fellows within the center. We have started to identify some, but we're still in the process of recruiting and identifying. All right, I think this is it for me. In the future, of course, we would like to believe that international is the way to go. Through the center, we are eyeing the ASEAN Coast Guards to be, our natural partners for this. And of course, developing a common agenda will be the cornerstone of our efforts for the Blue Economy Labs. With this, I would like to thank you for your patience. Mabuhay, maraming salamat po.
Thank you for that, Dr. Ona. A very interesting discussion on the numerous shareholders and stakeholders that are involved, hopefully to mainstream the blue carbon economy and thinking, even when it comes to LGUs and local communities, and of course, even the security sector, which I think was very important, a very important point. Our next speaker, I introduced him earlier, but I'll introduce him again. All right. Our next speaker served as the municipal mayor of Del Carmen in the Siargao Islands for 9 years, and 3 years as vice mayor, and now he's back as municipal mayor. The transformation of his municipality with an environmentally balanced and community-based development approach has been recognized by various national and international organizations. He is a father first and a public servant. Without further ado, let us all welcome Mayor Alfredo Matugas Coro II. Go ahead, Mayor.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My apologies for being late. It's been a busy few days for us here in Siargao, but it's a good busy. With that, I'd like to first extend my gratitude to the Asian Institute of Management and the Blue Economy Labs with Sir Elmer. And the rest of the team that invited me to participate in this discussion this afternoon. I don't have a presentation, so I'd like to blunt it out directly to everyone. We are trying to pursue a blue economy with the primary purpose of trying to raise revenue to be able to continuously protect the ecosystems that are worth protecting. The municipality of Del Carmen hosts the largest contiguous mangrove forest in the Philippines. We've been trying to protect the area for the last 10 years. When I started my role as a municipal mayor way back in 2010, our area has been considered the illegal mangrove cutting capital of the Philippines. And we wanted to change the perception of the people and the way they would behave towards ecosystems management. We deployed various strategies in trying to get them to be more aggressive and participate and embrace the idea of protecting, preserving, proliferating our vast mangrove ecosystem. Earlier this year, February 2023, our efforts paved the way for our mangrove ecosystem to be declared as the ninth wetland of international importance in the Philippines. Prior to that, we have started working and exploring on how do we monetize the efforts we have placed into protecting the mangrove forest. There were initial discussions about livelihood as an opportunity, and we have done that. We ran an ecotourism program that directly employs 1,000 families on rotation, thereby getting a share of the pie equivalent to 25% of our population. Because of these efforts, it has resulted into zero mangrove cutting, 97% reduction in illegal fishing, and of course, an income that translates to 5 times their previous income from 2,000 pesos per month family income to 10,000 pesos per month family income. This all impacted our poverty incidence, which reduced from 69.9% to 37.2% pre-pandemic. The behaviors of our community have already been impacted by our behavioral change methodologies, covering different demographics from children in school, out of school youth, women, senior citizens, the men, that allowed us to continuously protect and preserve our mangrove ecosystem even during the pandemic and even after Super Typhoon Odette. One of the most important aspects and visible results of our protection of the mangrove forest was that during the Super Typhoon Odette, which made landfall last December 16, 2021, there was a storm surge, but there was no surge. So the force of the wave was not felt, but just the water increase, decreasing our property impact and human casualty tremendously. And because of those experiences, people now really their beliefs towards protecting mangrove ecosystems and other essential ecosystems have strengthened. And I think in the process, we also realized that there are other potential threats to how we did things prior to Super Typhoon Odette in the pandemic. We became a very tourism-centric economy, but with the downfall of tourism because of the pandemic and slow recovery of tourism uptake, because of multiple options of tourism now, there is a need to look into other sources of resources that will allow us to continuously provide IEC to our constituency, and not just to the people on the ground, but to all that are visiting Siargao, being considered the #1 island in Asia by Condé Nast last 2021. So with all of this in place, there's really a need to look into different options of how we maximize the blue economy as a potential source of livelihood for our people, first. Second is how it will impact local governments' revenue stream as well. If there are options now in the national government that will allow us to do voluntary trading when we continuously protect our mangrove forest, how does it compensate back to the local government so that we could translate our efforts into something substantial? I've always believed it's very difficult to do conservation when you're on an empty stomach. And if we could not provide monetary benefit to the protection efforts of our constituency, it will be very difficult to sustain it long term, as what is happening globally. So our efforts in terms of the blue economy, we're now in a stage we are working with various organizations that has tried to compute potentially how much would be the potential valuation of our protection efforts, so that some other organizations would be willing to trade or pay for it, as we continue to protect. At the same time, we meaning the people and our local government would be compensated to continue the efforts that we have done. I think that's all for now. Just to give you a brief picture of where we are, and we're again grateful that organizations like the Blue Economy Lab, Asian Institute of Management, and other organizations have taken interest in this initial discussion as a local government trying to make a very unique pathway for other local governments to explore green and gray infrastructure mix, so that we could have a piece of the pie of what's happening in the blue economy, in the bigger blue economy of the world, by focusing on both the blue carbon side and the livelihood side. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you for that, Mayor Coro, our very generous and gracious host when we had the privilege of going to Del Carmen and the Siargao Islands. It's very good to have a local government perspective, given that the LGUs will play a very important role once this whole framework is set up. So next up, with the presentation of the Blue Carbon Framework that was prepared by our group. Interestingly, none of us have had any idea of the blue carbon or any framework for that matter in relation to this prior to our deep dive. And we're thankful for all the organizations that helped us and guided us along the way. Personally, of course, I come from the LGU, and we also have some mangrove areas in our city. We're very interested in looking at this. I'd like to introduce, of course, my other group mates, Sheikh Canlas and Regina Munsayak Babalate. They're both involved in development work in international and NGOs. And of course, our presenter for the Blue Carbon Framework is going to be Rosel, who has deep experience in the medical field herself. Go ahead, Rosel.
Can everybody see my slides? First of all, good afternoon, and I'd like to thank our previous speakers, particularly, of course, our Mayor Coro for the Siargao project. Again, as a disclaimer, we are AIM MDM students who are supporting the Blue Carbon Credit Economy or the Blue Carbon Fund model. So primarily, when we're doing the research, we found out that there was no blue carbon credit model in terms of that are very laid out already in the Philippines. So part of AIM's curricula is for us to create an impact first financing scheme towards mangrove preservation so that we see sustainability, particularly in the rest of the Philippine coastal communities, starting with our support community, and that is Siargao. So basically, the issue here is really climate change. It's one of the biggest change or risk in humanity. So therefore, the ability to mitigate the effects of climate change must be strengthened. Awareness must be strengthened so that we could strengthen the resilience of what we call as the nature-based solutions. Now, during our research together as a group, when we're looking into the blue economy, what are the things that has to be established? Primarily, we saw the different problems, and this is the problem overview that we have. The mangrove forest remains to be the source of economic activities, particularly in the coastal communities of Siargao. But I think when we went to Siargao, the mayor has already laid in place the awareness to the community of the importance of mangrove as a in climate change, and therefore some of its activities, particularly economic activities, has been hampered. Yung degrading the mangroves, making it as a coal. Wait. Making it as a coal, and then that would deforest the mangrove. So there's a threat for mangrove degradation. So looking at the research, we were able to create a blue carbon credit fund model. This is a framework that we are studying, and we were trying to put across all stakeholders because for it to work in the Philippines, there are three important considerations that we have to do. So we saw three aspects that has to be fulfilled. One is the technology or techno-economic, which looks at the technical and economic aspect, where we need to do a blue carbon measurement of the Siargao. And then we have to look into how do we price and how do we account for this blue carbon credit that we saw in Siargao. And looking at it, if we're going to be able to compute it, what is now the economic impact back to the LGUs, most importantly to the community? Now, part of it also, the techno-economic aspects would also tell us whether we will have a fund that would sustain the conservation as well as the preservation of the mangrove itself, because the main aim here is really for climate activity. The second aspect that we also have to deal with, and I think there would be a phase 2 for this meeting, is the political legal, where we look at institutionalization, where we see a lot of national bills and law that must be formulated to support and recognize this particular endeavor. There must be also local resolutions and ordinances, not just in Siargao, but in the rest of the other communities or coastal communities that would like to venture also on the same project. And what are the implementing rules and regulations, particularly when we talk about the income or the economic benefit of this particular project. And lastly, the third aspect is that it's the socio-environmental, where we have to do people organizations development that talks about a change in mindset, awareness about the importance of mangrove. And of course, there must be livelihood and incentivization program that must follow, because we are preventing them from their usual activities in that particular area. And to sustain the climate change action through mangrove preservation, then we have to give them other economic activities so that they would not be also a very important aspect in degrading the mangrove itself. And of course, part of it is we have to come back with a very high social impact and a very high environmental impact, which could be measured and KPIs could be set. So the expected outputs of this project will be the provision of the carbon credit fund model that will facilitate on the blue carbon fund management, that will ensure that there will be a community commitment and stewardship over the area, as well as enhanced community livelihood through incentivization, so that it would sustain the mangrove preservation and therefore it will successfully increase and support the climate change action. So our group dictum is that you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. And we started with non-awareness with all of this carbon credit movement, but we now recognize that we can do a difference. We just have to decide what difference we want to make. And for our group, we pursue this project. So thank you very much for listening.
Great. Thanks for that, Roselle. Yeah, it's from a deep dive to the framework that we developed. It was a couple of months, and it was a very interesting journey also. It's something that we continuously learn from as we talk to individuals who have deeper experience and knowledge about this particular topic. So the floor is now open for our question and answer session. For those of you who are interested, please introduce yourself, the organization that you're representing or you're from, and the speaker that you are directing your question to, so that we could have an organized discussion here. Anybody, the floor is open. Go ahead, Prof. Elmer.
Thanks for the interesting discussion. I guess this question is for everyone, but maybe initially see Mayor Coro can weigh in and share his thoughts. Mayor Coro, if, for example, there was X amount, say 10 million, 100 million in terms of blue carbon revenues, blue carbon credit revenues because of the carbon capture done in your mangroves, and knowing that every 3 years we have elections, how do you think the fund ought to be managed? Should it be deposited in the municipal account? Should it be held in some trust fund somewhere else so that it's insulated from the drama of partisan politics and reversals in local politics. Do you have any thoughts on that? Maybe Mayor Coro and then Lena and then the others.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. When the team was here, that's actually one of the questions we wanted to address, like one of how to manage it. But there are already existing limitations in terms of how we can manage local government funds once it enters our fund. So once the fund goes into the general fund of the local government, automatically the procurement processes apply. So to go around ensuring how the fund will be utilized using the existing policies, you are suggesting to have a trust fund within the local government and managed separately by a council. So that particular modality can allow can make the council be more accountable of how the fund will be utilized to very specific programs and projects. At the same time, prior to the fund release, we were suggesting that in the agreement of how the funds will be utilized, it should be explicitly already placed in the agreement so that the local government and the communities that are affected or will be beneficiaries of the fund would understand that the fund can only be used for certain utilization, and that can be placed through an ordinance, in a local ordinance. At the same time, placed explicitly in terms of the agreements or contracts with let's say the partner that would facilitate the blue carbon credit trading. This modality is already in practice when we get some kind of trust fund from other donors. So it's the same process to ensure that the funds to be used will only be used for very specific purposes. And with that in place, we can do additional checks and balances that are within the bounds of the local government and the policies of the Philippines to make sure that the fund will really be used in a specific purpose only. So the specific purpose funds can actually be done through policy, and policies cannot easily be reverted if you have councils that work with it. At the same time, there's also a hierarchy that after the local government, you have the provincial government, and you have the DILG, we have the ombudsman, we have all the mechanisms in place. We just have to ensure that all these other institutions are pretty much also capacitated, and they be aware of their role in ensuring that funds like this coming from blue carbon has to be utilized for these specific purposes only, as agreed, or as a practice that can be generated out of this study.
Go ahead, Lena.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just to contribute to what Mr. Mayor just said, it's good to remember this is a long-term involvement, and that lots of the costs will come upfront if you plant mangroves. So the most part of the costs will be during the first 2 years, whereas the returns will start to be coming in 3-4 years, little by little, and then the major part of the funding will be coming after year, say 6-7, depending on the types or on the species of mangroves which you will be growing, and on the natural conditions that you will be having. And I would ask a few questions to the participants, and thank you for the interesting discussion. It was very, 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 very productive for me. So maybe a question to the mayor. Are you open to investor money coming in? I do understand you are exploring this kind of government-related funds, but if it is a purely commercial initiative, when, say, we come as a commercial company, we bring investor money, and we make an economically viable project, Are you open to collaborations like this in helping a company like this finding a way to secure all the rights, to find the right people on the ground to collaborate with on the research side, on the initiative side, and things like that?
Hello, Ms. Lena. Again, thank you for expressing an interest to collaborate with our local government. We are actually doing a lot of collaboration with private organizations already. It's a modality accepted in the local government of the Philippines. Our local governments here have adequate corporate powers that allows us to participate in such exercise, allowing collaborative work with any private organization, either through a joint venture agreement, private-public partnership agreement, or other unique modality, but it has to go through an approval process if it's of a unique setup. We go through and sometimes we consult with our National Economic Development Authority to give us the rightful modality that will be in accordance with our existing policies. But yes, to answer directly, we do that and we could help you out. And again, we are already working with some organizations that are in this particular field and they are not local.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I would ask another question too, probably the Blue Economy Lab. I think if organizations like ours are coming into the country, the research they will be looking for and will be interested in is carbon sequestration baseline studies, I don't know, whatever socioeconomic studies which are necessary, biodiversity studies. This might be an opportunity for you to offer things like that, including all the biology related things to calculate carbon curve and things like that, to apply for a Verra registration, for example. Do you have any offers like this at the moment? Can we reach out and explore the opportunities here?
Thank you, Lena. In our university, we have faculty members and students who are engaged in such topics. I don't know their specific topics, but I know they're working on biodiversity and marine conservation. In fact, De La Salle University has a marine biology lab, excuse me, in Batangas, where they study all of these things. I'm not too familiar because that is not my field, but definitely the idea of Blue Economy, the concept is really to pull together the expertise within a university or a school and to put in existing research and perhaps try to develop new areas. Your idea of partnership, external partnership coming in and trying to push research in different universities is a welcome idea. And I think that would really, develop in a faster phase the Blue Economy Labs that we are envisioning. Thank you, Lena.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for those very interesting points that were brought up here. I think we got the varied perspectives, right? From the LGU, from the academe, from the international community that wants to help us out here. We're very grateful for all of this. We have a question in our chat from Leo De Velez. I don't know who this is going to be addressed to, but his question is, how about using donation tax credits for corporations who will pay for expenses for maintaining mangrove preservation to the cooperative of mangrove cultivators of the community? I think this would be best addressed by maybe Mayor Coro.
Hello, sir. Any resource support is very much welcome. If we could set up a modality wherein taxes can be provided to us, if not even CSR works, as long as it's regular. So the idea with this blue carbon economy and the blue carbon credit is that you get regular support for at least 30 years. And that ensures you that you have adequate resources to make sure that the behaviors of the people will not be towards destroying the mangrove ecosystems because of certain threats and shocks that they will experience along the way. The 30 years of the timeline of the carbon credit exchange allows you to confidently map out a plan so that the ecosystems are well protected. So if, for example, in citing that, to answer the question, if the corporation is willing to bet, let's say for the next 30 years, and the government allows, a tax process that allows exchange for the next 30 years, that is exactly the same as, as having the carbon exchange. I think the idea here is to ensure consistency of access to resources, because the issues of a local government is not only limited to the mangrove forest itself. We have other concerns. And if this particular sector and segment of our governance is already provided with financial and other types of resources, then I think the modality that you're suggesting of corporations would be very much welcome in terms of how local governments would be protecting its very fragile ecosystems.
Thank you for that, Mayor. I think we have room for one more question. If there's anyone else from the online or through the chat that wants to pose a question to any of our panelists this afternoon. There, we have a question from Dr. Elmer. How do the territorial tensions in the West Philippine Sea affect the risk ratings or investability of blue carbon in the West Philippine Sea coastlines? Maybe this would be a good question for Dr. Ona.
Thank you for that, Vice Mayor. Well, of course, if you're talking of contested areas, then it will be difficult for us, for the Philippines, to really assert our rights, right? But we're equally excited with this planned joint patrol by our allies and our Navy and the Coast Guard. So that would test this theory that yeah, we really can do things within our EZZ. And with that case, things are heating up by November or December this year. If that proves to be a successful endeavor, then I think that would spell well with related blue carbon initiatives within our EEZ. Thank you, Elmer, for that question.
Thank you, Dr. Ona. I mean, think about it. I mean, as an archipelagic country, we have a really wide coastline, but I mean, of course, contested areas makes a lot of things more complicated. All right, so we have one last question from Lena. Which institution would be best addressed to have? First, an overview of land use rights, carbon rights, and marine ecosystem restoration legislation in the country. And second, the existing successful mangrove restoration initiatives on the ground looking for funding. Right, this is a two-pronged question. Go ahead, Mayor.
I would go with number 2, looking for funding. So come to me. Successful restoration. 600 hectares with a very good growth rate and a lot of awards. So if you want to do that, please come to me. I still need to expand a few more to achieve the optimum level of size so that we could continuously address threats from storm surges. And number 1, an overview of land use rights, carbon rights. Land use rights would be the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Carbon rights, that's why we have this, I think that's why we're having this forum. Because we're trying to figure out what to do with those carbon rights. So I really cannot answer. I hope Dr. Elmer and all of the academia have figured it out, which agency in our national government should have that authority to actually declare itself as the authority for the carbon rights. And on marine ecosystems restoration, we have various. It's a bit complicated when we're talking about marine. So under the water, you have the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. If it floats within and it's not a protected flora or fauna, then it goes to the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. If it's within the risky indicators list of flora or fauna, it goes to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Then if you do illegal stuff on ground, on top of the water, the marine waters, you normally, it's being protected by the Philippine Coast Guard and the PNP Maritime. If you're in the port, before you leave, you have the Marina, Philippine Ports Authority, and Philippine Coast Guard. So our marine management is a little bit complex because it's free. Anything it's free, it becomes complex. A lot of owners, but that's the beauty of it. Trying to simplify all of these things. I think we look to our to the team from the Blue Economy Labs, how to figure it out, all this complexity, to make it simple so that we can actually move forward with a real opportunity for the blue carbon economy and the blue carbon trading opportunities.
Maybe I just like to add
Fantastic.
on Lina's question here. Based from our experience, it's
Go ahead,
really
Benji.
hit or miss. Yeah. So based from our experience here, it's really hit or miss. No. So for example, land use rights. The local governments have their own zoning of land use, but also DNR has their own definition of land use. The provincial government also has their own definition of land use. No, that's our experience, and it really depends on what you want to do. So, for example, if you are targeting restoration of mangroves, then the partner might be BFAR because they have the list of abandoned fish ponds, underutilized, abandoned fish ponds, no, which could be then reconverted into mangrove areas. But if that area is already considered for rehabilitation, then that's under DNR. So these are some complexities that we're already seeing right now. So I guess the lesson here is you cover all your bases. You try to ask all the agencies that you think might have some kind of overview of it, but it's always good to start with the local government. For example, with the marine ecosystem restoration, that usually entails municipal waters, no? And the LGU, the local government, for example, Mayor Coro, they have really the administrative powers and the management powers of all their municipal waters. Yeah. So this includes mangrove areas, I think. No. So for example, here in Calapan, we work with a lot of in Retro Mindoro, we work with the with the MAO, Municipal Agriculture Office, or the MENRO, because they are the ones who are really in charge of the mangrove areas in these municipalities. No. But in terms of carbon rights, this is also a gray area. We also don't know who should be involved here, and would be good also for Blue Economy Labs and maybe everyone here in the group to work together to try to figure that out. That's it.
Thank you so
for-
much, Benji. Thank you.
I think it's great. I mean, like, that we've started this conversation, we're starting a journey already, as is mentioned, of course, by Coast Guard Commander Esquilio. This is a national policy already that has been started. It's a conversation that has been started on the national level already. I'm glad that we've all come together. Thank you so much to all our participants for being here, for our panelists and all our speakers. Special mention, of course, to Mayor Coro, to Dr. Ona, to Lena, to Benji, and of course to Dr. Elmer Soriano for being here and for setting this whole thing up. I guess I want to end this afternoon before we have, of course, our documentation. We encourage you to turn on your cameras so we could have a good screenshot of those who attended today. I'd like to share, a very short excerpt of a poem by Antonio Machado. No, Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Traveler, there is no road. You make your own path as you walk. And I think that's what we're doing here. We're making our own path as far as the blue carbon economy in the Philippines is concerned. And I'm so glad, and I think on behalf of my group in the Master Development Management Program, the Capstone Project, we're so glad that we have so many travelers and journeyers with us on this journey as well. Thank you very much. Could we have everybody turn on their cameras so we could have a good photo session? All right, we've got 2 pages here, so bear with us for a short while. All right, let me get everyone in here. All right, put on your cams, please. Best smiles, ready, and hold your smiles. 1, 2, 3. Okay, second page. All right, ready. 1, 2, 3. All right. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us in this afternoon's activity, the Blue Carbon Credits with the Philippine LGU's online policy brown bag session. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you very much. Madamo salamat. Yeah.
Congratulations. Bye.
Congratulations. Thanks, Mayor Coro.
Bye, boss.